Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be making a tier list of the best weapons in the Finals Season 1 for the light build. And we're going to start off with the sword and the dagger. I'm going to group these together because they're both melee weapons, and I'm going to put them both in B because their effectiveness pretty much just depends on how good your opponent is. If you're running these with the cloaking device, you have to hope you can get up close and personal to your opponent, and you have to hope that they don't see you. And when you start hitting them with the knife and the dagger, the sword and the dagger, you have to hope that they can't hit you as well. So it's not going to be great if you're doing that. You just have to kind of hope your opponents aren't good. And if you're running with these with the evasive dash, you're going to have to be good. You're going to have to be really, really good to dodge out of the way of those hit scan guns, you know. And you have to kind of hope that your opponents just can't track you through the dashes. So, you know, you can use these if you want. The sword's definitely a bit better than the dagger. It's going to be really hard to hit those backstabs, so the sword definitely has the upper hand there. But you can use these if you want, and you can use the sword in particular if you want. It's not like they're in C or D, it's not like they're absolutely awful. You can use them, but other things on this list, like pretty much everything else on this list in fact, is probably just going to be a better pick. So, then we have the M11, and I'm going to put this in B, and the reason for that is because the XP54 is just better. It's just a better gun for the most part. The XP54 has a nice range, nice mag size, nice and easy recoil pattern, and it's got a scope on the gun, also very, very good damage. So this is just an all-round, really, really good, solid pick for the light build, definitely one of the best. And then you compare that to the M11, which it does have a good fire rate, and it does have an extra 10 bullets in the clip, but the range isn't great, the iron sights aren't fantastic either, and the recoil pattern is quite difficult. Or it's much more difficult than the XP54 anyway. So the XP54 is pretty much just better. If you really, really want to be up close and personal to people, you can use the M11. It is better at like those super close ranges, but having that extra range on the XP54 is very, very nice. But the M11 definitely isn't fantastic. I think it probably does need a little bit of a buff to be able to compete with the XP54, but also it could be in like very, very low A tier as well, but I'm going to leave it in the high B for now. So yeah, XP54 kind of just overshadows the M11 for the most part. I'm going to skip the sniper and we'll go to the V9S. This is pretty much just an alternative for the SMGs. If you kind of just prefer semi-auto weapons, then this is going to be good for you. This was nerfed with the launch of Season 1. It used to be super strong, and now it's just good. Now it's a solid pick as well. You know, it wasn't nerfed into the ground or anything. It's still very, very good. You have to be able to hit shots with semi-autos, though. In video games in general, hitting shots with semi-auto weapons is just harder than hitting them with full-auto weapons. But if you're someone that can, then, you know, you might like this. And another thing to note is that the time to kill with the V9S on paper is probably going to be much faster than the XP54, but in actuality, you're not going to be firing the gun as fast as you can every single time you enter a fight, because it's semi-auto. You're just not going to be able to do that. So, you know, that's just one thing you should bear in mind, but it is an all-round pretty good weapon as well. And if you don't want to use the XP54, I would probably recommend the V9S, and then if you don't want to use either of those, but you still want, like, an SMG, then I would choose the M11 after that. So that brings us to the sniper. This is a good weapon. It can one-shot lights. It does a lot of damage, especially if you hit those headshots. If you're playing ranked and you don't have absolutely incredible aim, just stay away from the sniper. Just stay away from it, just don't use it. If you're playing tournament or quick play or bank it or whatever, go ahead, use it, have fun. If you're playing ranked, just stay away from it unless you have really, really, really good aim. And the reason for that is because you're just going to be able to do so much more with a different weapon. But the gun itself is good, does a bunch of damage, has 6 clips in the magazine, which I think is pretty fair, and obviously it's got a scope on it. It does also have the sniper glint on it to let enemies know where you are if you've been aiming down those sights for too long. So I think it's good, but I think a good player is probably going to get more out of the XP54 or the V9S. I think like a pro player just is probably going to stay away from the sniper as well. I think it's kind of a weapon to use for fun, but I don't think it's going to be fantastic in most scenarios, because a lot of the time your fights are going to be up close, right? And hitting shots up close with an SMG or with the V9S is going to be easier than hitting shots up close with the sniper, right? So it's good, but I don't think it's really better than either of those two, so that's why it's on the last right now. If I haven't said this before, then whatever is on the left is the best in the tier, and whatever is on the right is the worst in the tier. So then we come to the LH1. The LH1 is still pretty good. It's got a lot of visual recoil to it, but it does also still have 15 bullets in the clip, which is quite a lot. If you get used to the visual recoil, if you can get over that and control that, this thing is still pretty good. It's by no means been nerfed into the ground either. Still very, very solid. I'm probably going to put it ahead of the sniper. And you can use it if you want, but I think the V9S and the XP54 are just going to be better in a lot of situations. Because, you know, if you're defending the cash out, you kind of have to be close to it, especially if it's indoors. And if you're going for a cash out, then you also need to be close to that. And the XP54 and the V9S are just going to be better than the LH1 up close for most people in most situations. So now we are going to talk about the shotgun. I'm going to come back to the throwing knives, and we're going to talk about this shotgun right here. This thing's very, very powerful. It does a lot of damage. It can two-shot a heavy, can two-shot a medium, can one-shot a light. So it's very, very strong, but it's also super punishing, right? You don't want to miss your shots with this, because otherwise you're probably going to die. So I would say it's kind of balanced in that it's super punishing, you know? If you miss your shots, you're not gonna be walking away from that fight alive for the most part. It also doesn't have much range, also no headshot multiplier, and it does have a very, very wide spread. So not only do you have to be super close to the opponent, hit both of your shots on the opponent, but you also have to like hit your shots very, very well on your opponent for them to die. So it definitely is good, but it's not going to be an S tier or anything like that. I think it's just a pretty solid pick. I'm going to put it in front of the V9S, just because I think it is a little bit better. I think the XP54 is probably going to be the best weapon here. I think it's a pretty solid all-around pick, especially because of that nice recoil pattern added on top as well. But the shotgun's probably a close second. This thing is quite powerful right now, but again, it's very, very balanced. If you miss a lot of your shots, then you probably shouldn't be using it. Another thing to note is that the light class by nature is super, super punishing, and so is this shotgun. So if you run the light build and then you run the shotgun, it's like an extra punishing build, so just watch out for that as well. So then we come to the throwing knives. These have infinite ammo, and they are silenced, and then the cons are they've got a bunch of dip, and they are projectile. So I'm going to put these in the highest tier on B, I think. And the reason for that is because they are a tiny bit dependent on how good your opponent is, much like the sword and the dagger. If you start hitting someone with this, your hope is that they don't turn around and shoot you, and you can kill them before they kill you. That's kind of your hope when you're using the throwing knives here. And yeah, they can do a lot of damage if you hit those headshots, but one of these other weapons is probably just going to be better for you to use. It's going to be much more consistent to hit shots, including headshots with these, because they're all hit scan, right? Which really does just put the throwing knives at a big disadvantage. And again, like, if you're behind someone and you start hitting them with these, you have to hope that they don't turn and look at you. Whereas if you're running the shotgun and you shoot someone twice with this, they die, you know? So a lot of the stuff on A is just going to be better. Everything on A is just going to be better, actually. That's why it's on A. But they are good. They're fun. You know, they're fun like the sniper. But I don't think they're going to be absolutely fantastic. And I'm also putting them into B just because everything else is so much easier to use. Even the sniper is easier to use than the throwing knives, and that is saying something. But if you are someone that can like hit every single shot as a headshot, then they would definitely be an A, but you're just not going to be able to do that, you know? So that's a major reason why I'm putting them into B as well, just to clarify. Just because they're really, really hard to use. Like, that's also why the sniper is in last place here, instead of like here, or there. It's because it's really, really hard to use well as well. So there you go. There is my tier list for the light. Let me know down in the comments if you want me to do one for the medium and the heavy. And then I suppose I could also do one for the specializations and the gadgets as well. But you let me know down in the comments what you want. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to be it for this video. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Farewell.